There it is. So I'm here with Glenn Kleczkowski,
Ah, well done.
producer, writer, all around creative, and above all, a friend. Uh,
Yeah,
and we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk to him about his career in the movies, in the show business, and but I want to start asking you, what, where did you grow up, and what are your memories of your childhood? The ones that stick with you. I always make it a point to start from the childhood. So,
sure. No, it's important because those are, in any good story, and I'm not claiming mine is a good story, but how about this? In any story, it's about good or bad. It is about the foundation, right? Upon which you build that story.
yes.
Uh, I'm lucky and blessed enough in this life to have a really nice foundation. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents, Greenpoint specifically, my parents, sorry, it's my dog. Hold on.
Yeah.
My my parents are from Greenpoint, Brooklyn. My grandparents on my mother's side, whom I never met, they both passed away before I was born, were from Ireland.
Oh,
My father's parents were from Poland, but they were second generation.
okay.
Um, but foundationally from New York and Brooklyn. And at a relatively young age, my father, who was in banking, international banking, really smart, bright guy, man. I wish I had his brain power. And you really, he he worked his way up with a high school diploma. He didn't get a college degree, and to the point where he taught at NYU, international finance. A guy who doesn't have a college diploma was teaching at NYU. He
Pretty
moved us
smart.
to Northwestern, yeah, he moved us to Northwestern New Jersey because he didn't want his sons going to, PS 134 or whatever, the public school system in New York at that time. So it was in the
Okay.
70s. Two older brothers, Rick and Chris, and one younger brother, Brian. Um, so we moved to New Jersey. We were always going back to Brooklyn, and New York loomed large. We were very close to it in New Jersey. New York loomed very large in my life. Um, the idea that the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, my grandparents' names are on the wall at Ellis
Yeah.
Island. Um, that stuff was so close. 30 Rock, where
Hmm.
Saturday Night Live
Yeah.
was, and David Letterman, and later Conan O'Brien and NBC News. All of that stuff was there. Radio City Music Hall. It was, you know, entertainment was, whether I liked it or not, was a foundation, was a brick in that foundation of my childhood. So, people like Frank Sinatra, Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, Dean Martin, Jackie Gleason, they were all very, very big figures in my life. That my parents loved them. So, the music was all around. Jackie Gleason conducted an orchestra. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people know that,
Well,
but he
I
was.
didn't.
Yeah. He was a conductor in an orchestra, the Jackie Gleason Orchestra. He's a very talented guy. So not only was he funny and The Honeymooners great,
Yeah.
but he was multi-talented, across the board. As was Sinatra, as were all the people that I looked up to in the entertainment industry when I
Mhm.
was growing up. So, memories. It's going to sound weird. Some of the memories that really stick with me and have influenced me creatively, it might surprise you. They surprise me when I really think about it. And a shrink, as we call them here in America, could have a field day with this. But um, organized crime and those figures, those luminaries who were, whether it be Charlie Luciano, not Al Capone, he was a Chicago guy, but the people around New York, be it Frank Costello, Meyer Lansky, Charles Luciano,
Mhm.
Lucania, Charles Lucania,
Yeah.
Lucky Luciano,
Good show.
yeah, Ben Siegel, all those people, John Gotti. John
Yeah.
Gotti was a giant figure when I was growing up, and he dominated the news. And and we could go into New York, and I used to go with my friend. It was a different world then, but in fifth grade, I would take a bus with my friend when we had a day off, and we would go into Manhattan, right into Port Authority on that bus, and then walk around the streets all day, go everywhere.
Wow.
So Little Italy was always a place I was fascinated with because it frightened me. Um, and those people were on, kind of on the street corner. It's not like they were, The Sopranos changed everything and it
Yeah.
became, and the it became crush, but those people were around and it was
Yeah.
kind of a way of life. And I felt like, New Jersey and New York foundationally, my memories are of deep friendships, family. A lot of the things that are, the stories that are told in that world.
Yeah.
So I was associated with it, though I've never been a criminal.
No,
I
no,
would never seconds in
I
that
get the
place.
fascination. I get the
Yeah.
connection. I get it. I get it.
Well, you know what it was, Pietro? It was I was fascinated by the socioeconomic impact of where one is born. From a very young age. It's kind of weird. Maybe I'm an old soul. I don't know, but I was really fascinated that I remember that's one of my first memories was thinking, huh, if uh, if Joey Gallo or whoever had been born three blocks, 5 blocks, 6 blocks north, south, east, or west, if John Gotti or any of these guys that I was reading about, if they had been born blocks or in a different neighborhood, whatever, maybe they would have been captains of industry. Maybe they would have been successful politicians. So where they were born and to the environment in which they were born, it really it, it
Well,
determined who they were.
yeah, it affects you.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
mean, it does with all of us. But
Yes.
that was fascinating. The idea that maybe who you become is not in your control.
It's exactly. It's out of your control.
Yeah, so that was
Most of it.
scary.
Most of it.
Yeah, and that was scary and exhilarating to me. You know, and it's fueled a lifelong passion to understand these people, that history, my history, where I'm from, though it's not associated with them.
I
I,
know.
I, sh- I share the city of my birth with them. So, I've become a little bit of a historian and a little bit of a scholar in that department, and I love it. I'm currently obsessed with Benjamin Siegel, and
I know. I
I
know
want
you do love that
to.
world. I do know that. And interesting enough, it's not a world that I was ever fascinated by. And the mafia originated here in Italy, and all that world that was then exported to the States originated here. But I don't know, I was never into it. Uh,
Yeah, I get
but
why would you be?
plenty of people here are into it. But
Yeah,
somehow, I don't know, it never, I don't know. And
I think
it's all because of us Italians that it exists. It's not that it's something to be proud of, but all the mythology also that the Americans then developed around it uh,
right.
is just so all encompassing in the entertainment industry. Books,
Well,
movies.
there's a cross section, right? There's, you know, a lot of these guys like there's a fella who helped build organized crime into what it became. His name is Oni Madden. He's
Mhm.
not well known, but he was very powerful and very significant in that history. And he grew up in Hell's Kitchen with George Raft. And
Okay.
Oni Madden wound up with profits and proceeds from bootlegging and whatnot during Prohibition. Bought the Cotton Club, the Stork Club.
Oh,
He
okay.
bankrolled the careers of George Raft and Mae West and Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway, and so that Broadway and these guys who had money and these struggling entertainers who had nothing, couldn't pay for dance lessons or couldn't pay for this that. Their friends, a lot of them at this time they grew up in the neighborhoods together. Sinatra grew up in the neighborhoods
Yeah,
with, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
they
yeah.
grew
I
up
know
to help
that.
people out. It's Look, it's a terrible thing, and I don't elevate any of these people or think of them as heroes. I'm just fascinated by their choices and their generosity. You know, when Al Capone was put away, I don't know what the statistic is, something like, 75, 80%, or maybe more of soup kitchens in Chicago closed down because he supported them. So it's
Oh,
this weird,
okay.
it's a weird thing where you're a bad guy, you're a criminal, yet you relate to those who have nothing. And so you try to help, and organized crime to me is a result of those who have no voices, and the
Hmm.
lack of, maybe
Like a,
police response or care. The Irish were the police. They didn't really care.
I guess it's like it's where the government or the state doesn't it's not present. Then the organized crime comes in
Yeah. Well,
and
and they police their,
substitute and makes up for the lack of government, basically.
yeah, they police their own. If the
Yeah.
cops aren't going to do something because your shop was robbed, well, you could go to a guy. And originally that was foundationally what it was. It was always extortion. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. We
No,
probably
no,
already
it's
have.
very
But
interesting,
when
actually.
you ask about, early memories, those are the things I think of. I think of, look, I grew up in New Jersey in a beautiful, picturesque little town, that was near a lake. And my father, this guy from Greenpoint, bought a boat, a really nice boat, and he became a pretty steady captain, and wanted a better life for his family and elevated our lives that way. What he didn't have, he was cooling off under open fire hydrants when he was growing up, I would assume. He provided a lake for us and a boat to take us out on, and it was really wonderful. I'm blessed when I pray, and I do pray a lot. I try to. It's really, I try not to ask for anything because I'm kind of overwhelmed at everything that I've received, that I've gotten.
That's very
And
nice.
very
Uh,
blessed.
so you kind of already answered my next question, which was whether or not the movies had were a big part of your life growing up. I guess they were.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
And what
mean,
was the very first movie you remember watching also?
wow. It's interesting because it's all a stew of memories, right? And
Mhm.
it's a chicken and egg. What came first? Which one did I see
Yeah.
first? I know I have really strong memories of George Hamilton as Zorro and the
Oh,
Gay Blade.
yes. Yes.
Those old movies I loved. I got a kick out of those. Um, I think television had a more profound effect on me as a little boy.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah, yeah. I mean, look,
Why?
Star Wars, certainly. I was born in 71,
Yes.
1971. So, Star Wars for sure. The movie, if you're going to ask me what movie was the most influential, I would say it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it captured my imagination in a way. It made me interested in archaeology. Who the hell is interested in archaeology?
Nobody.
Uh, Nobody.
After
But
you
I
saw the
was.
movie.
Yeah, I was, because Harrison Ford was and remains one of the coolest human beings on this planet, and one of the nicest. I've been fortunate enough to meet him and know him well. He is a wonderful human being. And they say don't meet your heroes. Well, in this case, he lived up to it and exceeded it. So,
Nice.
you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark captured my imagination. And a really funny anecdote, was working at a company for a while. We did some movies with Harrison,
Okay.
and I had an opportunity alone with him one time. We were just chatting, and I said, Harrison, this may sound weird, but you're really the reason why I came out here. You're a tremendous part of why I came out here. With Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars alone, and the movie Witness had a
Love
really
it. Love Witness.
um, these things, Blade Runner, this is why I came out, because I wanted to do that. And he kind of looked at me and was like, well, kid, I don't know if I can apologize enough. Sorry I let you. Like, no, you've led me on the adventure of a lifetime. You inspired me. You didn't lead me, you inspired me. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, television though, because it was so readily available. We weren't wealthy. We were a middle class family. But Battlestar Galactica, Little
Okay.
House on the Prairie,
I
I mean,
gotcha.
foundationally, yeah, shows like that, and later Miami Vice
Oh
just was
God.
like music and imagery and the colors. Oh my goodness, and what it could make you feel. St. Elsewhere, Hill Street Blues. I mean, I could go on and on. Some of the greatest shows ever. There's a show, a really obscure one. I think it was Josh Brolin's big break. I think it was
Josh
called
Brolin.
Private, and I
Oh,
think Anthony Yerkovich did it. And I was fascinated with that because it took two of the things that I loved, that 40s, 50s, I think it was 50s sensibility, that rockabilly thing. And there was a
okay.
private eye who his street informant was Josh Brolin, who was in a leather jacket, a biker jacket, and had you I wish I could do mine like that, but he had the true pompadour, you
Okay.
know, and he
There.
would they were partners, and it only lasted for a couple of months. It didn't work the show, but even that had a profound effect on me because it blended these two things in the 80s, in the early 80s, that who cares about the 50s in 1984 or 85
Ah,
or 86,
you're right.
and the rockabilly said, but I realized, oh wow, there's a guy who created this out there who loves that stuff and wants to introduce it to people like me.
So that kind
um
of made you go, oh, that's possible. That's what makes
yes.
the movies make it possible. The television makes it possible to have these stories and these different worlds collide and merge, maybe, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
nice.
Yeah.
I may
And
have to hunt down that show with Josh Brolin.
it's hard. I've been looking for it. I've been obsessively looking for it. But
Okay.
I'm also a little afraid to watch it because maybe it's terrible.
Maybe it's
For
terrible, and the memory you have of it are better
yeah, sometimes it's best to
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 leave it
stay,
where.
yeah, to leave it where it is because
Okay.
it did its job. Um, I think it's interesting on birthday. My older brother Chris was like my hero when I was younger. My oldest brother is Rick. He was always very sharp, always, and charming guy. My brother Chris was, athlete, and I don't know, for whatever reason. I think Rick liked the Pittsburgh Steelers in football, and Chris liked the Dallas Cowboys, and I was attracted to the Dallas Cowboys as a kid. So
Okay.
maybe it's not stupid as that, but I kind of latched on a little bit with Chris, and this you're gonna like this. Um, my parents had gone out. It was the night before my birthday. My birthday is July 20th. So on July 19th, my parents had gone out to dinner and they were going to be late. And I was home with my younger brother, Brian, and my brother Chris, who was out with his friends, came home and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how old I was, like 12 or whatever. I don't know, I'm 12. What am I doing?" And
Yeah.
I'd like to take you to the movies for your birthday. You want to go see a movie? And I said, "Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Yes, of course." So we went to the movies, and I was mesmerized by one of the characters on the screen. Like, just that's the coolest guy ever. Wow, how fun is this? How cool is he? And that movie was Silverado.
Nice.
Yeah.
1985. You saw it at the theater.
Yes, yes, 100%. And I walked out. I remember my brother did too. Like, who was that guy? That character was really cool, swinging from the prison
Hey,
bars. I kissed a girl. It's
all
the
I did was kiss the
coolest
girl.
damn
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, man. So that's a moment that I will never forget,
Wow.
because it captured my imagination, and later going through it, right? I just graduated from high school, so it was 1989. Ugh, I'm old. And I had had a girlfriend. She was like my first love, and she broke up with me, and I was devastated. I was the walking, talking cliche, in tears, listening to sad songs in my car. I was just heartbroken, and I couldn't stop thinking about her
I get
and my
it.
heart. Yeah, right.
Get
We've
it.
all been, but
Yeah.
this is as stupidly cliche and on the nose, like ridiculous, but kind of in a desperation and in a like a zombie walking around because I was so sad. I went into Blockbuster Video. Remember those? And I
Yes.
love
They were still
Blockbuster.
around when I was a kid. So I do remember going in.
So I could waste hours. That's why I went in there. I could waste hours looking at the VHS, reading the back.
Beautiful.
I don't know this, you know what I mean? So I
Holding
was looking at
them, looking at the covers, and
the greatest, a joy my son and my daughter will never know. And it was really special to have that, to be able to
yeah,
go into a place
it
and
really was.
have all these movies that 90% of them, 95% of them I never heard of. You
Yes.
know, or Shane. I didn't what did I know about
Yeah.
Shane? You know, but there it is on the shelf. And wow, the cover looks interesting. I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna rent Shane. So you know, curiosity led me to some great films, led me to some terrible films as well, but
Awesome. Yeah.
mostly great films. And anyway, back to what I was saying.
So you went into Blockbuster.
Yeah, and boy, everything good, you know, for me that I was looking for was
Yeah.
rented. That would happen, right? You'd go in there and it's like, oh man, you mean Gremlins isn't here? Um, I grabbed this one movie because I liked the actor, and it was a movie called Doc Hollywood, Michael J. Fox.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I took Doc Hollywood, and my parents had a basement. They kind of furnished the basement in the house. It
Mhm.
was a three, and in the basement was a pool table and a television and a VCR and a
Perfect.
couple of. So I sat down in the chair. I put in Doc Hollywood, sat down in the chair, hit play, and watched the movie. And when the end credits started rolling, I realized that for like an hour and 30, whatever, 20, whatever, however long it was, the length of the movie, I hadn't thought about her. I hadn't thought about my heartache. I was distracted. And I swear on my children, that was the moment. That was the moment where I went, I want to do that. I was so sad, and this movie helped me.
I
It helped me
was.
forget. I started thinking about you on the day before your birthday. You always go see a movie. You saw Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. Like every birthday on the 19th, you would celebrate it going to a movie. I never really thought about that until the end of Doc Hollywood, and I started counting receipts, so to speak. And I went, wow, you love this, and I don't really care about me in this, but I want to be a part of what
Yeah.
they just did for me. And I hope I can be a part of doing that for someone else. I hope. And I went upstairs and I told my parents, I think I'm going to move to California. And they're like, what are you talking about? Um, and yeah, a year and a half later, I was out here.
Gosh. So at 20, you moved. You were 20 when you moved? Wow. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about how did that happen? I mean, what prompted you? But you already answered. It was
Well, yeah,
moment.
but, you know, credit where credit is due. I was best friends with this family. They had, they're all boys. And it's funny. There was Dan, Don, Doug, Dean, and Duffy, the Garden Boys. And I was really best. They were like a second family to me. I love them dearly still to this day. We don't keep in touch, and we fell out of touch, but they occupy a tremendous space in my life, um, eh, eh, affectionately so. Um, Duffy and the oldest, Dan, who was
Hmm.
a mom,
Oh,
they were living in Ventura, California. They had moved.
oh,
And I knew Ventura Boulevard, so I assumed that's where they were. I didn't know.
okay.
But they were, you know, I reached out to them and I said, you know what, the idea was, you know what? I knew they were out there. And after the Doc Hollywood thing and formulating a plan to talk to my parents about it, I was like, you know what? The Gardeners are out there. You know, two of the brothers who I'm good friends with, I can go at least crash with them until I set up shop. You know,
Mm-hmm.
have a place to go
A place to
and not.
stay and go.
Yeah, and a safe place with safe people, you know, though the world wasn't as scary then as it is today. So, you know, it was fortuitous, you know, timing wise, they were out here. So I came out and stayed with them and, you know, enrolled in Ventura College and got my associate's degree and was going to go to film school and get my bachelor's. And I was managing a Wilson's leather store, you know, Wilson's jackets and such to pay the rent and stuff while I was going to school. And you hire holiday help around the holiday, you know, around Christmas. And we hired a bunch of people, and one of them was a cinephile. This guy, Pat Towner, was his name. And Pat was great. And he loved movies, and we would talk movies all through Christmas, all through the sales and the rush and all the craziness. We would always talk movies. And then sadly, in like January, we had to let Pat go. You know, we had to let all the temp holiday help go. So we did, and it's like, well, let's keep in touch. And I don't know, it was March. I'm at Wilson's working one night in Thousand Oaks, and the phone rings and I answer it. Wilson's Leather, this is Glenn. And Glenn, this is Pat Towner. I remember I worked. I'm like, yeah, Pat, how are you? He's like, I'm good. Hey, listen, I know you love movies. Um, I got a job on this movie, and they're looking for a PA. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, a production assistant. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I've seen that movie. Yeah, yeah. He's like, it's not permanent. It's temporary. It's going to be for a couple of months, and then you're on your own. And I don't know if you'd be of interest, but I thought of you first. I don't know if this would be an interest to you, but I thought of you first. And I said, oh man, let me think about it because I have insurance here. I'm making good money here. I'm trying to go to film school. Let me think about it. And I said, what can I ask what the movie is? And he says, yeah, it's this Will Smith movie. And I was like, oh man, The Fresh Prince. And at that time, people didn't make that leap from television to features
Okay.
on a regular basis successfully, you know? It was kind of like, oh, usually they would try, and
And
for the most part,
fail.
and yeah, and they would do the David Caruso thing, right? Which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because David Caruso is awesome. But so I thought on it, and I there was an old man. I used to smoke at that time, and I went outside the mall, outside the front door, to have a cigarette because I was feeling stressed. Like I got to make this
Yeah.
decision. There was an old gentleman there. He was, kind of hunched over, and he was elderly. And I was smoking a cigarette, and he said hi, and I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" And he said, "What?" And it was really a stupid question. There wasn't anything profound or deep I had to ask him. But I was like, do you think you took enough chances in your life? If you had to do it over again, would you take more chances?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, I would. There's some things I didn't do that I wish I had just rolled the dice. What's the worst that could happen, you know? As long as it's not life threatening." And I said, "No, no." He goes, well, what are you considering? I said, "No, nothing. It's just a question." But I walked in the mall going,
Mm.
"I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." And my parents weren't thrilled because there was no stability. And
Yeah.
that movie was Independence Day.
Yeah,
And
I was
um,
gonna ask you about that.
yeah, and it turned Will Smith into a movie star. And I was lucky enough to work with the miniature effects, visual effects pyro unit that blew up the White House, that did all
Wow.
of the fire stuff, did
Wow.
all of the motion control unit, did all the spaceships,
Oh,
everything. And they won an Oscar. And they were led by a guy named Doug Smith, who was involved in Star Wars. And the
okay.
guy I worked closely with was Joe Viscoso. Or closely, however you want to characterize that. But Joe was very nice to me and his team. And Joe was a visual effects guy, and he blew up the Death Star in Star Wars. And he was always listening to Sinatra in his
And
trailer.
you,
So,
the perfect word colliding,
yeah,
like,
how about it, right?
yeah.
Um, I didn't think at the time how perfect and serendipitous that was. But looking back on my life, I go, oh my goodness gracious. If there were signs shouting, do this. Well, that was certainly one of them. And Joe
Man.
and his team, deservedly so, won the Oscar for visual effects that year. And they were like, hey man, you sweep the floors and you don't complain. And whenever you go on a grocery run, you come around, you ask us what we want. We like you. We have this movie Volcano. Would you be interested in coming aboard? And I said, sure. I know I'm good at sweeping floors, but is that what you want me to do there too?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're going to have 6 stages, and visual effects is not allowed to have a union assistant director to run the stage, to schedule it and run it out. So there was a fella named Pete Novich who was way more knowledgeable, smarter, more savvy, everything better than me, and by 1,000. And Pete's going to be running 4 of those stages, but 6 is probably too much. And you can learn a lot from Pete. You're not an idiot. I'm like, well, thanks. Um,
Thanks.
you would you want to do that with him? And I thought, oh my God, I'm an AD. Not
Wow.
at all. Not an AD, not a real AD, not at all.
But
But
no.
we did schedule and try to move things along. We had days to make. So in that sense, and communication, it kind of taught me moving between departments and all that stuff. And Volcano was competing with Dante's Peak, so it was a race, my first ever. And oh, they're making 2 movies about volcanoes. That's
Volcanoes.
weird.
Yes.
and it was a rush to get to the marketplace first. And Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche were in ours, and you know, it was really great. So that began my kind of so summarizing all that, that's how I got into the movie business.
Okay. I was gonna ask you if you had any interactions with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. No, right? Because you were like
No, no,
the
I wasn't
the
close to
technical
them.
parts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was working with incredible, like master craftsmen. I worked with, I wish I could remember his name. I may have this wrong, Mark Ronick or something like that. Handsome guy, really nice, like black mustache, but white hair. So he looked like Magnum PI in a way. He's just so handsome, this guy. And he was the key grip. And he would wear OP shorts and like a t-shirt every day and flip-flops, which was like, you're a grip,
Yeah,
what are you
like
doing? I think about
and
it
you
now, it's
were
in
yeah, it's like not what you would expect, right?
right. But this guy was one of the best key grips I'd ever been around and was just had a mastery of his craft and his department and his people. And so that's what I was really exposed to were master craftsmen, the most, you know, because when you watch movies, you go, that actor's so talented. Wow. Oh, the costumes were great. The costume designer is so talented. Wow, look at the photography. The photographer is so talented. That director, he really nailed it. You know, but the people who are the unsung heroes who get it done are the grips and the electricians and the people who no one ever knows. They
Absolutely.
work harder than anyone else. They're there after you leave to wrap. They're packing up trucks. You know,
Mhm.
like they bust their asses and they do it because they love what they do, the industry, and they want to be a part of it. And you know, I romanticize it a bit because it's hard work. And who chooses to do this and be away from your family for weeks, months on end? You know,
Yeah,
10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. Maybe.
it's gotta be a passion.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's a kind of a calling,
I
almost.
think so.
I would say it's like being a
I,
doctor or being a firefighter. It's those jobs you have to have. You know, it's a calling. Otherwise, you're not doing it.
yeah, look, it's a real high-end bougie calling,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know.
high-end calling, but kind
My
of the
toughest
same.
day,
What's
my
that?
toughest, my toughest day, my hardest day has never even come close to running in the direction of trouble when everyone else is heading away from it.
No,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so
I
I take your point 100%, but what we do is magical and we're gifted. We're lucky. We're
oh
so
yeah,
lucky.
absolutely.
It's pretty amazing, you know. So that there it speaks to feeling blessed.
Yes. Uh, so uh, so you go from Volcano, Independence Day, two disasters movie in a row, to
Zilla.
kind of another end of the world movie, which was End of Days,
Oh
which
yeah.
you
Yeah,
worked
that was a
on,
little bit that was a little bit later. Yeah.
yeah, like
You know,
3 years later,
you know what I
1998.
used to do, Pietro? You know what I used to do? This is true. Um, I used to wish. I used to like make a wish in my head. I wish, oh God, I wish I could work with George Clooney.
And you
I
did.
w- I could work with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And you did.
And stuff like it started happening in the weirdest ways. And I would go, what is going on? I credit it all with the people who I was able to hitch my wagon to. I was just around more talented, better people than you know I may ever
Well,
be.
I think you ought to give yourself some credit because
Well, I
you
appreciate
were
that, but
good. You were good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let you come along or, you know.
I was well behaved. It hasn't always been true in my life and career. I've made some really big mistakes, but
Everyone
um,
has.
sure, sure. But you know, so yeah, you know, Schwarzenegger. Look, I went from those, you know, went from Independence Day and Volcano to Godzilla. I got fired from Godzilla, which I
Oh,
thought
this
that
I
was it.
didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Roland Emmerich's Godzilla. I came on a little bit late. Visual effects. We're up at the tank in Santa Clarita. They have this tank made that they used on Titanic.
The same one?
What's that?
the same tank that they use in
Yeah,
Titanic?
it was for the exterior shots,
Okay.
and miniatures.
Yeah.
And we were doing the opening of Godzilla night stuff where the tail hits the ship, if you remember that movie. And
I
I
haven't
just
seen it in
came
a
in
long
late.
time.
Yeah. I came in late. They hired me late, and it was discovered that, production reports hadn't been done at the end of the day. So I tried to do back production reports. I went to each department head, and it's on me. I didn't do them right, and justifiably so. They fired my butt. But I thought that was the end of the line for me, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go back to Wilson's, or I'll go back to school, go back to film school,
Oh,
because
you
no one's
really
ever going to.
thought it was over? You thought it
Oh
was
my
over
God.
good?
Oh my God. I don't know that I've felt that low before. I
Huh.
really just thought this was it. Because it's such a small town.
Yeah.
Um, And some of the people I was working with who I had worked on Independence Day and Volcano were on this movie. And
Okay.
they said, no, no, dude, that wasn't right. What happened? They advocated for me and made a call to a fellow named Kurt Williams, who was a visual effects producer working with a legend, Matt Beck, on the X-Files movie, Fight
Huh.
the Future. Now, I was an X-Files fan, so I was like, wait, what? And
Again, that
yeah, so
what's going on?
yeah, man, like really. So
Yeah.
I wind up on the X-Files movie. That was the hardest movie I've ever done,
Right.
up until just the hardest thing I've ever done. They had to do it during hiatus between seasons. I think it's
Huh.
seasons 5 and 6 or something like that. So there was no we need an extra day, or there was a delay. There wasn't. There were hard outs, man, and it was a brutal schedule where one day we are in Bakersfield and it's 110 degrees at night and we are lighting a cornfield on fire, and I'm up in a scissor lift with a high speed camera and a cameraman, and my job was logging visual effects data: lens, filter, height, angle, distance, rangefinders, distance to subject. At that point, you needed to do all this stuff. So I had these forms that I would fill out for the visual effects people. And so one day we'd be doing that. And then the next day we are on the Fox lot, on one of the stages. Hollywood Ice is there. We have a 12-foot gimbal built that moves, and we're blowing snow all over the place, and it's 35 degrees, 34 degrees, something like that on this stage. So you go from standing in front of an inferno where
Yeah.
the heat is so much to the next day putting on a winter coat and
Freezing.
going on summer and going, oh, this is hell, and really long hours. But I'm proud of that movie, and I'm proud and blessed to be associated with it. So from there, yeah, I
How did you
wind
get on
up
End of Days? How did you get
Kurt
home?
Williams.
Oh,
Kurt Williams.
okay.
Yeah, Kurt. Um,
Were you there from the very beginning of production? Because I remember reading that there was another director attached, Marcus Nispel, before Peter Hyams came in.
so I wasn't there for that, but I
Okay.
know that, and I know Marcus. He's a lovely
Okay.
guy. Um, yeah, so I came in after Peter was in place, and one of the stories I heard, again, I'm on an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Uh, Holy moly, I'm calling my parents and telling them, like, oh, the only thing better than this would be to be on the George Clooney Batman movie, or
Yeah.
what, I mean, at that point, I thought that was going to be something. Or the
Yeah.
Val Kilmer, I don't know which was first, but the Batman thing. So
Yeah.
it's one of the first stories I heard was one of the producers, Army Bernstein,
Hmm.
um, really, really advocated for this younger actor to play, because the movie is Arnold Schwarzenegger versus the devil
Yes.
on New Year's Eve at the turn
The
of the century.
century. Yeah.
And there were all those Y2K fears. There's so much propaganda and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I
this fed right.
kind of remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
So one of the stories I heard was, and my reaction's funny when I think about it, um, that Army Bernstein really wanted this young actor, and he pushed hard for it. But I think creatively, they felt he was a little too young, so they went in a different direction. That was to play the devil,
Okay.
and that actor was Heath Ledger. Yeah, right.
Ah,
right? I mean, he knew at
gosh.
that time, had no idea who Heath Ledger was, didn't know any, but they were going to go with Gabriel Byrne instead. And I
Hmm.
thought, I like Gabriel Byrne. Are you kidding me?
Amazing actor.
I
Amazing.
owned his book, Pictures in My Head, which was
Oh,
a
you
book
do?
that yeah, I owned it at that time. I'm a big Gabriel Byrne fan. So I'm
Okay.
going, are you kidding me? And Arnold deferred or allotted a portion of his salary to pay to bring Gabriel on board. So Arnold put picture first
Yes.
and took, his salary and wanted to reallocate it, which I thought was really thoughtful, generous, smart. And that movie was incredible to work on. That was incredible to work on. I wish it was better received by people.
I love it. I think it's underrated. Overlooked. It's overlooked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
like
it's
a
dark.
big, I think it's the last big Arnold movie.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
What?
I know that I later worked many years for Army Bernstein, and he's kind of going back to he's kind of a godfather for me in a sense. My dad always said, you got to have a godfather. You got to have somebody who's going to kind of take you under the wing. And he and a fella named Charlie Lyons later did that. But I heard stories on that set. I would sit with the publicist and I would, I'd always ask questions, not be annoying, but I would always, hey, can I ask you?
Yeah.
And the publicist shared a story with me that I love so much because it's so Hollywood and what I fell in love with. It was all of the Universal executives. Now, maybe this isn't true. I don't know because these stories happen. But at that time, Universal was run by Ronnie Meyer and Stacy Snyder and Mary Parent and Scott Stuber. You want to talk about a studio that was crushing it? Universal was crushing it. And they had just an amazing group of talented executives whose taste was, beautiful. And all their movies seemed to work. And what I heard was Army went into this room with all these executives, with Andrew Marlowe, who's a wonderful writer and
Writer.
later became someone I admire greatly, and said, Schwarzenegger, the devil, uh, December 31st, 1999. And it was like sold in the room. It was one of those things where everyone understood it
They got
and
the kids.
it was a greenlit film. And
Wow.
Peter Hyams had directed the sequel to 2001.
Yes.
Uh, Peter's a wonderful director. He's a cinematographer as well. So he was, and Arnold was everything you could imagine and more. His jokes, he's a funny guy. And when he was governor and people came after him, like, oh, he told inappropriate, he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just that guy. He's always
Yeah.
been that guy. And he's
Just horsing
what I love to do.
around. Just horsing
He
around.
is, he's the personification of the American dream.
Yes.
For anyone outside of this country, that guy, what he has accomplished in his life, oh my goodness gracious. I don't even know how to characterize it. It's amazing to come here, not know the language, to be, to win all of these Mr. Olympia or whatever, to be the
Titles.
reigning champ and dominate
Yes.
and to
Or
become an actor
and
who
the
speaks
highest,
is supposed to be an actor.
the highest paid actor at one point also.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was lovely. He was lovely. I enjoyed, he was always playing chess with his guys outside of his trailer. Like, talk about, that's not what I expected.
Smart guy.
Isn't he a meathead? Not at all. He's one of the smartest guys I've been around. And also, um, there was no cast as far as class,
Oh, okay.
PA, whatever, the lowest person on the totem pole. Arnold treated them really well. He treated me really, really well
Well, that's
as
nice.
well.
That's nice to hear because with these big stars, you never, as you were mentioning, Harrison Ford, you never meet your heroes. But it seems like you've had experiences with these giant stars where
Oh boy. Oh
they
boy. Like
didn't.
really, really lucky. Arnold was the greatest. And look, the streak continues. That's why when I start out saying, I'm really blessed, when I pray, I'm thankful because I've encountered so many incredible, incredible people, who are so kind and generous, and they could be jerks. They could be, difficult. So look, some are. Okay,
Some are,
that's
right?
just the business. And look, that's the nature of an artist, right? People can say James Cameron is difficult, but James Cameron has a very, very clear vision. And I'll tell you a story later. Remind me to tell you about seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with that guy on the poster behind you.
Oh, you did? You did same
Yeah,
with.
it's a great story, but
Okay.
it's out of context right now.
No.
Uh,
So you ended up also working next with George Clooney, which we were
yeah,
looking for, dreaming about doing, you know? And
yeah. Seeing
how
out
did
of
you get Oh Bro what's the title? Oh Brother Where
Oh brother, where art thou? Yeah.
Art Thou?
Um,
Okay.
I segued over to special effects, and I don't even know what my credit is. I've never really cared about credits, to be honest. It's never the thing that has driven me. I don't care if anyone knows who I am. I have no desire for fame. I just always wanted to be a part of these things. So it's never been about me. So I'm grateful to be breathing the same air and
Hmm.
being contributing to the creation
Yes.
of art or entertainment or whatever you want, a distraction, a better place, a celebration, whatever. Always been grateful for that. That's the point of me being here. Um, some of the guys I worked with on Independence Day, Kyle Collinsworth, Mickey Duff, Joe Heffernan. These are guys who I knew from Joe Viscoso's crew on
Okay.
Independence
On
Day and
Independence
Volcano.
Day.
And they called me and they're like, hey, we need someone in the shop. Would you be interested in like driving around and picking up parts for us? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I had finished a movie and gone back to New Jersey to visit my folks.
Okay.
And when I returned to California, I didn't enjoy my vacation because I was really nervous about where my next paycheck was coming from. And I was like, oh, I got to go back to California. I got to be careful what I spend here. Like, I don't have a job. And I came back at night. I came back late at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night and went to bed. And the next morning, I got a phone call for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is bananas. That's actually happened twice where I was stressed out. And then I got a phone call like immediately. There was a period where everyone would say, as soon as you're done with the movie, fill out your unemployment paperwork, make sure it's ready to go, and you submit that. So at least you're getting some cash in. I did that a dozen times and never collected unemployment because I had a job before I could cycle through the 2 weeks. And that has nothing to do or little to do with me and more to do with the generosity of those that I worked with. That's the truth and the thoughtfulness of like, hey, what about him? So I got the call to do Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And it was really kind of practical effects. We worked on, they were shooting this in Mississippi or wherever
Yeah,
they shot it.
in the South.
So I wasn't on first unit. So I wasn't next to camera. I had been next to camera on a bunch of films, but I was back to kind of doing what I did on Independence Day and Volcano, except with special effects. So we did the flood. That was at
Okay.
Universal Studios across from the Psycho House at that lake there, where the
Hmm.
cabin for
Yes.
Stan is there, Great Outdoors or whatever it's called. So we did the flood. We did the Burning Cross.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I don't even remember what we
Great
did, but
movie, by the way.
all of the practical effects.
Great,
Yeah,
great.
and reading the script, I didn't quite get it, but the cast was terrific. Tim Blake Nelson, I'd never heard of, but he was so revered by everyone as this Broadway,
Actor.
brilliant Broadway actor. And Turturro. And so when I saw the movie, I was blown away. It is one of my favorite films that I have ever worked on. I'm so proud to be associated with that one because it's a wonderful film that will live forever. And I got to interact with Mr. Clooney a bunch. And this is at the height of his handsomeness, at the height of his kind of, his powers in a sense. He
No.
was he was coming off. I mean, he may have still even been
PR.
ER, but he was coming off that he was like the biggest, hottest star in the
Yeah.
world. And here this guy is at lunch every day, tossing the football around with the grips and camera and PAs. I'm not kidding. He didn't retreat to his trailer and
Hmm.
eat alone or with only high level other actors. Or he was very accessible. And if you asked him for a picture and autograph, he was like, "Yeah, let's go." And it was very generous. And really, I felt at home and was just like, anyone I told, yeah, I'm working on a movie, the George Clooney movie, women freaked out.
Yeah.
So I became interesting to women in my personal life when they would find out that I'm working with the, can you introduce me? I'm like, no, I'm nobody. He doesn't know me, but I did get my picture with him.
So not very much like Arnold in that sense, right?
Yes. Yes.
Very.
Cut from the same cloth, maybe spiritually in a way. I don't know. I'm sure two people couldn't be more different, but in the sense that how they treated the crew and how they treated the process, professional and great, great, great. And I remember one of the things I got a bunch of Dapper Dan cans, the pomade that he
Oh,
would
yeah,
use.
yeah, yeah.
I got a bunch of those and gave them to some friends. And I got one picture of George Clooney's grandpappy, his great grandpappy that did a photo, an aged
Yeah.
Civil War era photo of George Clooney with a beard. And he's supposed to be his grandpappy. And that in the movie floats by the camera at one point during the flood,
Oh
right? So if
my
you
God,
watch the movie again, you'll see it, and you'll look for it, but you'll see it. It's there. It floats by the
okay.
camera. And in cleaning up that mess of a flood, it was a lot, helping to clean up. Um, I grabbed that and I'm like, hey, does anybody want this? Can I take this? And they said, take it, whatever. So I took it and I, let it dry. It was so hot. I let it dry outside and it stiffened up. And I brought it to George and I said, could you sign this to my brother? And he did. He
No
signed
way.
it,
Cool.
Colonel Clooney, and that's something my brother has hanging in his house. A nice little keepsake. Really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
so after this, in the year 2000 again, you work on 13 Days, which I
Yeah.
guess is the very first time you meet Kevin Costner. Am I wrong?
No, you are 100% right. And that was the second time that I had gone home after a movie and not had a job
Okay.
and was really worried coming back. I was really worried. What am I going to do? I have no money coming in. I filed for unemployment, but that's not going to be enough. So, like, man, it's one of the reasons why I think, I would always look at the credits in movies, going back, to a little kid, and I would wonder, well, I wonder what happened. There's so many people,
So many.
and
Yes.
common names. I know in the old movies that I watched as a kid, I would always look for Perk Westmore. Perk Westmore was a makeup artist, and the Westmore family is a famous family. But every movie you'd see Perk Westmore. Every Bogart Cagney was Perk Westmore or one of the Westmore families. So I always paid attention to credits, and I would always wonder what happened. What happened to not like in a bad way,
Yeah.
but I go, "Huh, these people left the business. I guess there's a burnout factor, right? So I would, kind of look at that stuff and think, well, maybe that's going to be maybe I have a finite period of time in this, and then I'm going to go manage a fruit stand. I don't know. And I got the call. I got the call from um, Paul Deason. Paul Deason was a UPM on End of Days
Okay.
and
May I ask what's a UPM?
a unit production manager.
Okay, unit production
He
manager.
was old school. Paul was from the old guard, and he was great. He treated me very well. But I got this phone call out of nowhere. So End of Days was 98. So this
Yeah.
is like 2 years later or a year and a half later, something like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Paul Deason, whatever, and I get a phone call out of the blue, and it's Paul Deason, and hi Glenn, this is Paul Deason. What? Hi Paul.
Why would you be calling me?
Yeah, like I didn't know what to say. Hi,
Yeah.
how are you? And he's like, I'm well. I'm well. Listen, I'm working on this movie right now called 13 Days about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we got a lot of producers on it and a lot of people of note. And the AD department and the PAs can't handle this the way that it should be handled. Um, And he said, and I remember you were really great on 13 Days around talent and around like Andrew Marlowe. And he goes, remember Army Bernstein? And I said, oh yeah, yeah, the tall guy with always came in with the kind of the really nice overcoat. And He's like, yeah, well, he's one of the producers on this, so I really want him looked after. And one of the other producers is Kevin O'Donnell, and this movie is
Oh,
about Kevin's father,
yes.
right? Who
Yeah.
was the Kennedys' like, secretary is understating it. He was
Uh,
their best friend, close advisor. He was a very
confidant, maybe also, right? Confidant
yes,
Kennedy.
very important man in the history of this country, one of the unsung heroes, right? During a very tumultuous, dangerous time. Um, Kevin was also one of the founders of Earthlink at that time. So that was a
Oh,
big thing. No, he was,
wow.
and his family was connected in Washington, wherever. And also, Peter Lawford's son.
Okay.
I lamented later, like, oh, wow, if only JFK Jr. hadn't had
Y-
that untimely, tragic death, like JFK Jr. would have been, I guarantee you he would have been there. You
Yeah.
know, um,
He died like maybe a year earlier. I think in 99, 98.
yeah, it was when I was on End of Days. I
Oh, it
actually
was
remember.
while you were okay.
I remember being downtown,
Okay.
downtown LA. Remember downtown LA when it happened, and it was just so surreal because the Kennedys loom large in my family as well. My
Okay.
mom was a huge fan of JFK,
Oh,
and I later became a little obsessed historically with RFK because I think he would have changed this country in
I
ways
think I
he would
think
have
so as well.
been faster, like, and these two were assassinated. And the tragedy of that, the mind-boggling, scary thoughts of, oh my goodness, and conspiracy, or no one really knows, and all of that, I was fascinated by. The same thing as organized crime. I was fascinated by this dark underbelly of what really happened there.
Yeah.
So that JFK Jr. perished the way he did, or was missing because they were searching, and that went on for a couple of days. That affected me in a weird way, having never known the guy. And what do I care? But I did, as an American or whatever. It bothered
Yeah.
me. So now I'm on this film, 13 Days, which is about one of the pivotal moments in our history. And if not for what is it? If not for the goodwill of good men or something like that, I don't know if this country, this world would be what it is. How they navigated that on both sides.
We would be
Uh,
talking about like millions of dead people.
Mutually assured destruction. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, that was the name of the umbrella company under which we produced the film, Mutually Assured Productions.
Oh,
Um, and on that film, I was brought in to kind of help with the day to day. Army was a really busy guy. He was running one of the most successful independent production companies in Hollywood, Beacon
was that
Pictures.
Beacon Pictures, right? Yeah.
So he wasn't there a lot. He was, but like I can't be there at 7 a.m. at call time
Yeah.
because I have this or that. So, that put me in a spot where, and look, I took some liberties with it. Army never said, "Hey, I want you to," but he like, keep me in the loop, kid. Let me know what the hell is going on. If
Yes.
I'm walking into something that's a problem, I'd like to know about it beforehand. Call my assistant Arabella and give her updates on what's happening throughout the day and kind of guide me into location and whatever. And meanwhile, Kevin O'Donnell, this is a story of his father, is
Yes.
there, making sure that he's kind of comfortable and taken care of, and is in the know as well. And so that put me at camera meetings and blocking meetings first thing in the morning, right next to Roger Donaldson
Yeah.
and Roger Deakins. So I remembered Roger Deakins from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He was a director of photography on Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I didn't get to
Oh,
spend much time
wow.
with him, didn't get to know him well, but I watched him work for weeks and knew he was a legend. It was like, whoa, and now he's on this. So now I get to know, okay, now I can get to know him, maybe ask him a question or two. And Roger had done The Hurricane with Denzel Washington.
Beautiful
He had
movie.
Yeah, beautiful. And Army produced that, Army Bernstein.
Yes.
So um, he does The Hurricane, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou in 13 days without a break. Boom, 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 back to back, back. And I think he was exhausted and burnt out. And, during production at a certain point, I think he was like, look, for my own health, physical health, mental health, all that, I need to just take a minute. And Roger stepped off of the picture, and Andre Barkowiak stepped in and finished the movie. But yeah, it was my first encounter with Kevin. And Kevin,
So what was that like? I was gonna ask you.
here's the guy from Silverado.
Yeah, exactly. Because
The
you
guy
saw
from
on
like,
the
are you
screen when you
kidding me?
were a kid.
I just got done with Clooney, Schwarzenegger, like the X-Files. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Who's luckier than me, man? Like, I'm just happy to be here, folks. And Kevin was nice. He was a pro. He was tough, and when I say tough, he was just on time, prepared, expected the same of you, and had a really great sense of humor that I wasn't sure how to read because he just came across as kind of tough. And I had such reverence for him. He wasn't this kind of bombastic, outgoing, gregarious kind of look. Kevin's really understated. And Schwarzenegger's like, "Ah, come
Over
with
the
me to my
top.
let's go.
Yeah,
And Clooney is just like the most handsome guy alive. And I don't know where it all comes from, but he's very nice. Maybe because he hit it later in life. So
probably.
he had many failures, and so maybe there's whatever that was. Kevin was cut from a different kind of cloth. It was like, whoa, look at this guy, and he was very kind to me, very professional, very kind. And there was a football that the Kennedys have. I still have the football
Yes.
from there on the
They
desk.
they throw the
They were I was
football.
playing. I've got a great picture of the Kennedys from their foundation of Bobby and Jack, I think in like Hyannisport, and it's probably in the fall. And they had these tackle football games, and it's Jack in his tie and Bobby in this beat up sweater with kind of a, flannel collar sticking out. He's got leaves all over him because he's been tackled. It's a great, lovely, beautiful photo. But they were always throwing the football around. And Kevin was like, "You want to play catch?"
You
Gee,
kid. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. No, like, come on, let's. And I played quarterback a little bit when I was in high school. You know what I mean? Like, not organized team structure stuff, but like we had a bunch of rough and tumble kids. We play on frozen dirt and grass in Jersey, and not on a field.
Yeah.
But they would have township rivalries. It was fun, and I took great pride in those games. And
Yeah, it's like
um,
us, like we would play soccer here on the cement or on the whatever, everywhere we could, the same thing. No.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I had an arm. I did. I could throw the ball 55 yards like I could and high. I had a really good arm. I'm a lefty.
Oh,
Um, and I really prided myself. I love to unleash but I hadn't done it in a while, right? So this is what 2000 is 11 years after I was like throwing a football
yeah.
around. So Kevin's like, want to have a catch? And I'm going, yeah, I'm like
Yeah, sure.
28, 29. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it over your head. Uh, no. So here's this guy who I'm struggling to throw it as far as he can. He's just, and I'm like, like really trying. The next day, I could barely move because I stretched, I don't know what you
Oh,
call it, all the muscles through my back. So I was having back spasms to the point where, the kind of back spasms where you're like, you can't control that. And I'm on a set where you
you're on
can't make
this.
it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh. So that's really one of my first memories with Kevin Costner is I threw out my back trying to match his arm. He's got a
He
heck
was
of an arm.
what was he like 45 at the time? I think
I
45.
underestimated him athletically, and still to this day, he is an incredible athlete. If Kevin had decided to be a professional golfer, professional baseball player, he could have been. This is not hyperbole. This is the truth. That guy could have been anything he put his mind to, and he put his mind to being a tremendous actor, writer, and producer, and actor or director. So, I think anything he chose to do, he was going to excel.
Nice. Nice story. I didn't know that like
Yeah,
at your
yeah,
back.
man.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Um, so you after 13 days, you kept working, you did firewall,
Well,
you
Army
worked.
Bernstein said to me, so here's here, and if anybody watches this, look, and you come to Hollywood, this is really important. And I didn't realize it. So it's not like I was intuitive or had an idea. Um, but whenever Army or Kevin Costner or Kevin O'Donnell, they had multiple meetings, especially when Deakins was leaving.
Yeah.
These are important moments. It could throw a production into turmoil if it's handled correctly, right? And can cause massive delays, which are expensive. So, there's a lot of coordination and thoughtfulness that went into this, a lot of meetings. And those meetings would take place in the trailers. And every meeting, I would open the door when people would come from the outside, and I'd let them in, and I would close the door, and I would stand by the door outside. Just what
Okay.
else am I going to do? Stand them outside, it's where I'm supposed to be. So this is where I'm going to stay in case I need anything. Um, and after like the third or fourth one, over a course of days, the Deakins thing's been resolved, but there's still meetings that happen. Army knew everyone. Rachel Hunter came by, Oliver Stone came by. There were all kinds of actors and directors and people of note that would come by to see Kevin, to see Army. So I would always do the same thing: open the door, come in, close the door. And one day, Army came out of the trailer. Yeah, after his guest left, he's like, "Come here," and I'm like, "Oh shoot, what am I doing?" And he's coming, and he's like, and he kind of looked at me like this, like, and I'm going, "Whoa, what did I do? What did
What
I
did I
screw
do?
up?"
Yeah.
And I'm looking at me weird. And he's like, where did you come from? And I thought, oh boy, I've really screwed the pooch. And I said, Roger Deakins called me, and I'm here to kind of help. He's like, no, no, no. He goes, don't be nervous. He goes, I've worked with so many people in your position who invite themselves into the room because they want to learn, and they sit down, and they're not welcome, and it's awkward. Sometimes you need privacy. A lot of times these things are sensitive, and they're not for everybody's ears. And oftentimes they're not for anybody's ears but mine and the person that I'm talking to. He goes, you've never once come into my trailer and sat down to be a part of these meetings. He's like, what's up with you?
Well, honestly, and I would have behaved the same like you did.
Yeah,
I never would
right.
have invited. I think it's a sensible thing to do.
That's it. It's not my place. There's no sense of entitlement with me. There
Yeah,
never has been, and there never will be, ever. So I was like, but he was complimenting me, and he
yeah.
said, the next breath he said, he wrote down on a piece of paper, and he said, call that number. That's Suzanne Ellis. She's my president of production at Beacon Pictures. She's looking for an assistant. Tell
Wow.
her I want her to hire you. And I was like, what? I'm like, I don't even know how to work a computer. I wouldn't know the first thing about rolling calls. He was always talking about rolling calls, which means going multiple phone calls. I don't, Army, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And he was like, doesn't matter. You'll learn. You'll learn. Just call her. Tell her I said this. I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay. So yeah, so God bless him. And then Army welcomed me into the fold at Beacon. And Beacon was at its peak doing movies like when I first came on, we were releasing The Hurricane and End of Days, which I'd worked on, right? End of Days. And then it was Bring It On, Family Man,
Hmm.
13 Days, Spy Game.
Spike.
Uh,
Yes.
the Beacon's library is so vast and really substantial. It's
It's
great.
quality stuff.
Quality stuff,
Quality.
smart stuff.
Smart.
Army was
Yeah.
Show West Producer of the Year. And what happened was I was assisting Katie Bailey Cowan in marketing and Suzanne Ellis in development. And it was too much. It was too much. I was serving two masters, and they were great, but I felt like I was always underserving one. On any given
Yeah.
day, I was always, and I felt bad about
Got
that.
it.
So I basically said, you know what? I'm going to go back to being the slug on set and doing that because I don't know how to manage this. There's too much.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we'll choose one. You know what? Why don't you check out publicity?
Uh,
Have international territories, learn that. That's of great value to us because they had to deal with Universal at that time, and Universal would get domestic distribution and certain territories internationally, and Beacon retained others, Germany and France and whatever. And there was a lot of work to be done with artwork and film distribution and press junkets and all that stuff. So I learned under Katie, and it was incredible. I would never think, that I learned so much.
So you
And
picked
then,
international, you picked that.
yeah,
Okay.
I learned about international marketing
Marketing.
and any good script, Army would always say, "Hey, give this a read. Tell me what you think." Suzanne, they were generous.
Yeah.
They were generous and inclusive. I hate that word because it feels like it's such a day of today, a reaction or overcorrection, but they were truly inclusive people and truly generous people. And for some reason, they allowed me to read scripts, and Army would always bring his guests. My desk was kind of on the way out. He would always bring them by my desk. And we had this great rapport back and forth. And
Yeah, that was really nice.
I remember one time, this is later, Bridget Moynihan, beautiful Bridget Moynihan, so lovely and so sweet and just an incredible person, human being. But I was struck by her beauty, and she was so kind to me. And that was, when a beautiful woman is kind to you, it's confusing. It's like, what?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
doesn't
uh,
happen, right?
right. And she was so really because I was Army's guy, but I think more because she's a good human being. She treats everyone nice, as I saw it. She was in Army's office. They were having a conversation. And I remember I knocked on the door and I opened the door and they both stopped and looked up. And I'm like, and I looked at Army and I pointed to him like, and then I pointed to her and said, "Do you need anything? Is there anything I can get you? I think I heard you. Did you call me?" And Army howled. He laughed at that. He thought it was really funny. And then he would bring people by my desk. And I would do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation. I perfected it in days. And even perfected an imitation of his stand-in Dieter. Dieter Rauda. Dieter Rauda would talk like this. If you had visual effects. So I would never imitate Arnold around Arnold. I was terrified. I would never do that. I would
Of
not want to
course.
insult him, feel like I was making fun of him. So I would always do Dieter. And Army, I was wearing this purple, different shades of purple, small checkered shirt, dress shirt with slacks. And Army came by my desk with Arnold, and everyone in the office, it was like a line. Everyone in our company was on that line of desks and offices. And they all kind of came out because Arnold is there. And Army's kind of walking down the hallway with Arnold. He stops at my desk and he's like, in front of everybody, he's like, "Arnold, this guy worked, Army was really smooth. This guy worked on End of Days. All right, your movie. You might remember him. You probably don't. And Arnold, it was very funny. I think I remember you." And he says, "Well, he can do an imitation of you, and he entertains us all the time with imitations of you." And I'm like, "What? What are you,
Put you on the spot.
what are you doing?" And now I'm like standing up, and I'm like, "Oh no!" And Army's like, "Come on, imitate Arnold for him." I was like, "No, no, I'm not going to do that. But I can imitate Dieter." So I'm like, visual effects. And Arnold's like, "Oh, it's very good, very good. Let me see what is he talking about over there." And I'm like, "Oh no." So everybody's watching, and I'm like, "Oh no." So I'm like, "Listen to me. We've got to get to the chopper. Come on, let's go." And he's like, because it's very, very funny. And he points to my shirt and he goes, "Somewhere an old woman in Bulgaria is going, 'Where the fuck are my curtains?'" And the entire and it was one of the most embarrassing, like he just boom, boom. And it wasn't mean, it was funny, but I
Yeah,
was embarrassed all hell. But it speaks to the guy he is. He wasn't making me feel bad. He was having a lot of fun.
yeah.
And Army again, back to Beacon. I spent 17 years there.
Wow.
Um, I did so because I worked for the two greatest men I've worked for in Army Bernstein and Charlie Lyons, and a fellow named Mark Abraham, who was another incredible executive. He was a partner in Beacon for a while till he went out on his own, and had tremendous success. He's the architect behind Spy Game with Doug Wick and Family Man. And Mark's an incredible guy and was always very, very nice to me. Very low maintenance because I would take care of the premieres. And everyone had seating charts, whatever. Mark would be like, "I don't care, put me wherever," and that I've taken that from Mark in my life because I always appreciated that. I was like, wow, this guy really doesn't care about the pomp and circumstance. He cares about making a
Yeah.
good movie. Whatever comes from that is gravy, but it's not about him. So, and Eric Newman, Randy Newman's son, but
The composer?
I would say that that's how it used to be. That's how you go, oh, Eric Newman is Randy Newman's son. Now it's, oh, Randy Newman is Eric Newman's father.
Okay.
Eric Newman is behind Narcos and that whole world, and he was brilliant back then, smart, funny, just an incredible guy, and so nice to me. Along with a fellow named Steve Asbell, who was helping to run Fox Features, later graduated to that. So I worked with people who were amazingly talented and have gone on to have tremendous careers and are responsible for you know, some of the best movies you've seen in the last and television that you've seen in the last 10, 15 years.
Wow. I could be listening to you telling these stories all day long, by the way. I love it.
Man, here's the thing, my friend. I've yet to break the barrier when it comes to money. I'm not well to do. I'm not rich. I've worked in the industry, but I've always said, look, I hope that comes, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because really, I say this a lot, I'm not going to be clutching my checkbook on my deathbed. What I'm going to hold on to are these life experiences and these people who helped me along the way.
Yeah.
I mean it. That you can't take your checkbook or your money or your bank account with you. I think you could take your memories and the
Yeah,
energy of that
definitely.
and your life and how you lived it with you. That's what's most important. So
Oh,
I'm,
absolutely.
I'm around doing this and you're talking to me. I appreciate it. I don't know why you'd want to talk to me. I could talk for hours, but I'm really nobody in the large scheme. I, you know,
That's
I'm
not
really
true.
grateful to have met you because of Kevin. I met you because of Kevin and because of 𝙂𝙗𝙙𝙾, who
Yeah.
I'm now part of. We're trying to do some things together. It's this life and this coming out here to Hollywood has led me to the doorstep of some wonderful people who've changed my life. And not just because they've done something for me or they've employed me or they thought to call me, but I've shared experiences with you on set and here in Ventura drive around touring and heard your story. And I would never know you and know your story, which deeply touches me and what you're doing and how you've gone about doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Um, Pietro, it's remarkable, and there's a generosity to you that I don't think people who don't know you will ever grasp because it's limitless and endless and incredibly thoughtful, selfless. So
Oh,
I appreciate you more than you know, and I hope the people who watch these things forget me. Pietro's the guy you should pay attention to,
oh,
because
that's
I think you continue on this road you're going to continue doing great things. I believe it.
wow. You're being so generous. I mean, too kind. Um, Let me get the light, and I'll ask you a couple more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah,
If you
go for it.
just a second.
Absolutely.
There it is.
Hmm.
There I am. So, oh gosh, I'm tearing up here. Ah.
Well, that's because you're a sweet person. You're a good soul. Since I've had kids, I cry at the drop of. I'm always fighting not to cry. It's unbelievable. I, it's unbelievable how much I would never cry when I was a kid. I didn't have that. I wasn't able to. I would internalize everything. But as I had children, I can see a Hallmark card commercial and I'll cry. It's
It's either that or like, I don't know, maybe you're a softie too.
Maybe,
Maybe.
maybe everyone's generosity and thoughtfulness in my life has brought me to a point where I'm humbled by it and I can access my emotions. Maybe
Probably.
that's it.
Yeah. Um, I want to, let me get back on track. Otherwise
Yeah.
I'll just, um, so,
Don't make me vape. Don't do this, kids. It's bad for you.
exactly. So, so you worked with Kevin again on, because you were working at Beacon, you work on The Guardian, you were assisting Mr. Bernstein, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh, you were working on
so
production.
yeah, no, I wasn't on production. For
Okay.
for 17 years, I wasn't really on production. I had stepped back into that in the last decade, but
Okay.
Army, his longtime assistant, who is the best in the business, a woman named Arabella Johannes, she decided to step away. She'd been doing it for a while. She's just decided to step away, and Army went on this search for an assistant on his desk, which is a very busy desk. Um, and he went through a series of interviews, and his partner Charlie Lyons
Yeah, great
came by my,
guy.
yeah, came by my desk one day and was like, "Look, man, we got to fill this spot with Arabella. It's a big spot. And we've had a temp on the desk, and she's been here a month longer than she anticipated. And she doesn't want to be here anymore. Not because she doesn't like it, but because the reason why she does what she does is she wants to move around a lot.
Hmm.
So she's leaving, and Army has seen 20 people, and he doesn't like any of them, doesn't feel a vibe with any of them. And I'm really frustrated because I want to help him so that he can operate and maneuver. He's very busy. And all he keeps saying is, well, the only one I like is Glenn. And I know that's not true. And I know Charlie was doing a generous sales job on me, you know. And I'm like, Charlie, I can't handle that desk. You know, he's talking to Ron Meyer. He's talking to Barry Diller. He's talking to the biggest people in this industry. I don't even know what I'll do on that desk. I can't do that. And he's like, no, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Just you'll pick it up. And I'm like, oh my God. So I did it. And he was right. I could do it. And they were patient and generous with me on that. So those movies that happened, I was on Army's desk.
Hmm.
Um, so I was connecting him to everybody, and I was meeting everybody.
Yeah.
I was talking to everybody on the phone, and I'm good on the phone. I know that. I give good
You
phone.
can talk.
Yeah, no kidding. Shut up already. Like, truly, I'm a motor mouth at
Yeah.
times. Um, I was good on the phone with people and developed good relationships with folks. It's how I developed my relationship with Harrison. We did a movie called Firewall,
Firewall.
and we had
So that was the first time you met Harrison on Firewall, or you'd met him before?
hadn't met I know he'd been in the office, but I hadn't interacted with him on like an interpersonal level.
So you
Um,
told him what you did about him
but he
inspiring you on Firewall.
say that again.
You told him that he inspired you to get into the business on
Yes, yes,
Firewall.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Firewall was a script written. It was originally called The Wrong Element. It's a
Oh,
great script, and we had a terrific director, young director attached called Mark Pellington,
okay.
and Mark had endured, you know, a personal tragedy, the likes of which I pray no one has to go through. But he went through a rough time, and he had to pull himself from the movie in the interest of his family. And it was sad because Mark was so cool, and he like directed Metallica videos, and he had a real
Oh,
vision. He had a lot of energy, and it was great. And Richard Longcrane came on.
came on.
Proper Englishman, lovely human being. More Shakespearean than anything else. And it's always the matching of people and material. And so many things can go not wrong sideways or can be altered, whatever. I mean, there's so many things that can change the trajectory of a movie, a script, a production. But Richard came in to fill that void left by Pellington, and he did so really well. But Harrison was going over the script with him. He was at our office a lot. And
Okay.
they had a lot of meetings where it was 7 o'clock p.m. and the office is shut down. And hey, we're going to go into the conference room. Could you order us some dinner? Call Harrison, find out what he wants to eat. And I call Harrison Ford's home, which is bananas. And Callista Flockhart would answer. And
The
she
wife.
was sweet. Not like it was like calling your neighbor. It was weird. It was like so normal. But it wasn't normal for me. But she was normal. And I got to find out she was a Jersey girl. She went to Rutgers University. My brother went to Rutgers University. So there was a little bit of
A
like, oh, cool.
connection.
A little bit, yeah. And I liked her a lot. She was awesome. And I would say, hey, Harrison, this is Glenn from Army Bernstein's office. Look, we're ordering dinner for your meeting with Richard and Army, going over the script. What can I already ate, kid. Um, if you could scare up a bottle of Glenmorangie or Glenlivet, or you get me a good bottle of scotch. I'll sip on a drink while they're eating. So then it became my mission to find like a really good bottle of scotch for
Wow.
Harrison Ford. I'm not going to buy him garbage.
No,
Um,
exactly.
and, and that's when it happened, Pietro. Like
Okay.
he came in, I had the bottle, and he was like, "Where can I get a glass and ice?" And I said, "Oh, come on, we'll go to the kitchen." And he, or I'll get it for you. I'll bring. He said, "No, I'll go with you." So we go to the kitchen, and I get a glass and I put some ice in it, and I hand it to him, and he's
You
like,
were like shaking, like, oh my God.
"Oh, no, no, no." He made you feel comfortable.
Okay.
I mean, inside, I was a little
Inside.
like I'm talking to Harrison Ford, like we're hanging out, and and I got this glass with ice, and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Hey, here's
yeah.
your ice," and he's like, I handed it to him, and he kind of looked at it, and he's like, "You're gonna give me a pair of skates with that, kid? Too much ice," and he dumped the ice out and kind of talked to me about the proper mixture of scotch and ice. Um, and it was really cool. And it was in that moment I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know you're and we had that interaction. And he was really kind. And then when we were up, they were up in Vancouver shooting The Wrong Element, and Army was up there, and he called me one day and he said, "Look, we're having a rough time. I think you should book tickets to come up here." And I'm like, "Why? Okay. What's going on?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, Harrison likes you, and I think if you were up here, it would be good. You could
You,
rap with him." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you should just book your flight, come on up, da 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 da." Da." And true enough, sure enough, I get there. I'm walking from my hotel to the set, and I'm walking in the street, and it's like night, dusk, and Harrison's walking from a hotel we were shooting in, or no, an office building. I'm sorry, an office building we were shooting into his trailer. So I'm literally walking up the street, and he's walking this way, and he sees me, and he goes, "Hey!" And I'm like, "What is happening in my life?"
yeah.
Harrison Ford just said, "Hey, what are you doing here? Good to see you." And I'm like, "What is happening?" So, I spent a lot of time with him. I spent a lot of time with Alan Arkin. I got to talk to Alan
Oh,
Arkin.
wow.
It was lovely. Like, again, I keep saying that word, lovely. But again, I met these people who were so generous and kind to me on every level. And I love Glenn Ross.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
one of my
Wow.
favorite. You break
Wonderful.
my heart in that film. You're so good. You and Jack Lemmon destroy me in that film. And he's like, "Oh, let me tell you about it." And the generosity of the storytelling was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Like,
I
hey,
know.
how you doing? Harrison Ford going like that? Are you?
Swear to God. Swear to God. It was, dude, if you think I wasn't on the phone to my mom, like, "Mom, Harrison Ford was excited to see me." Like, now my mom must have thought, "What is wrong with my son? Who cares?"
Yeah.
I don't know what my mom thought, but I was excited. I was like, he knows who I am. He's like, "Hey, good to see you." And I'm going, "Whoa." So that was something,
You had a,
and look, I attribute all that to Army. I attribute all that, because Army was like, "Come work at my place, and I'll teach you, and my people will teach you, and you'll learn a little bit from Eric Newman, a little bit from Mark Abraham, a little bit from Charlie Lyons, a little bit from all these people. How to conduct yourself, kid, how to navigate a room, how to how to have a phone conversation and not be freaked out, not lose your
yeah,
mind
these
when
are
you
social
are in front
skills that you learned. You learned these social skills, but basically, it's 99% of your, not your job, but the
Yes,
film business is social skills.
100%. And I
I
didn't
think.
realize that. Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize that. I was kind of like, I didn't realize what they were doing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what they were doing.
So one of your latest projects that you embarked on
Yeah.
is a huge saga. It's a tetralogy, 4 movies. It's called Horizon, an American saga, and Kevin Costner is directing it. He wrote it, co-wrote it. is producing it and starring in it, and you are a co-producer on the first two films.
Yeah.
So my question is, when was the first time you were made aware of the Horizon project, and was it still a one movie thing when you first heard about it? And how long had you been involved with it before it started shooting?
Well, I wouldn't oversell my involvement with it, so to speak, but I was at Beacon. I
Okay.
was at Beacon when that project was brought in. It was originally, well, that's way before he brought it into Beacon. But Kevin later told me it was a script called Sidewinder, and Kevin asked a great question, and again, Kevin was really nice to me, especially in the Beacon setting. He was really open and nice about creative stuff, and I even asked him, felt so comfortable at one point because he was there so much. I said, Kevin, can you please kill me in one of your westerns? Can I be one of the cowboys you shoot? And he was like, yeah, I'll do that. And it was a kind of a cool, funny reaction. It was like, yeah, I'll kill you. Of course, I'll do that. It's like, oh my God, like, Silverado. I go back to that place, right? 2009, 2000, something like that.
Mhm.
2009,
Eight,
2010,
nine,
2008.
nine,
I'm
okay,
not
around
sure.
there.
It was somewhere in there
Okay.
that he had this. And the question Kevin asked that I alluded to a few moments ago was, you know, he 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 said, look, these westerns are always about the guy coming to town, the stranger coming to town, or the stranger leaving town. It's always this trope, right? How did the town get there? And Kevin has always been fascinated. Well, since I've known him, he's always said, the West fascinates me. I'm paraphrasing. The West fascinates me because I wonder if I could have made it. Because you could have all the survival skills in the world. You could be the most skilled cowboy, wagon guy, horseman, whatever. And you nick your leg and you get an infection
You're
and you
done.
die. Like,
Yeah,
so that
that's
is,
true.
it's very true. And has always seemed to me and expressed to me that that is fascinating to him, interesting to him. So, yeah, from those moments, I know the Beacon was really keen to do these films, and it's all about timing. I think they were close a few times. There have been a couple
So,
of
so
false
as
starts.
far as far as far as you as far back as you remember, you were when you were at Beacon in 2009, 2010, was it already four movies then? No, it was still one film.
It's hard to recall because I think it was two movies,
Oh, it
two
was two movies
maybe
that,
maybe three, maybe
right.
three. I have that recall of Hayes, his character being a guy who never reaches the promised land. I know that was an original conceit, and the romanticism of that,
Of
that
the,
this
yeah.
guy's got this flyer, horizon. He can't read, he's illiterate,
Yeah.
but he looks at the picture and it's calling to him, and he's never able to get there, but it's really the story of how the West has settled it.
Yeah.
Kevin always said it's really the story of the women because the women are such strong characters. And the idea of writing a Western, a saga that is female driven,
Yeah.
well, you're talking about in the early 2000s, in the 90s. Like Kevin was doing that back then. He was looking to do that. You have all this stuff that's out there now,
Yeah.
and it seems like that's just common fare. It was not common fare back then.
And the interesting
Um,
thing is that he's always had great women characters in all of his films. I mean, going far back as
yeah,
Bull Durham and Silverado and Tin Cup and Field of Dreams and all Bodyguard and also Wyatt Earp was really the women were a big
yeah.
part. Oh, even though they were dismissed in that story by the characters.
It felt for them.
Yeah,
They were represented in a respectful way.
yeah,
And I've always liked that about Kevin, to be frank. I've always liked that about him. You know, look, it's another story of a blessing and being lucky, right? I I knew Kevin, but I wasn't buddies with him. Like we knew each other in passing, and we always had great conversations whenever he was at Beacon. He was always kind and generous to me, and I decided after 17 years, I'm gonna go out on my own. I started writing. I had some things I wanted to take the bat off my shoulder and not just take pitches. I wanted to swing. And so I thought the only way to do that fairly, because Army is the type of guy who will help you make your dreams come true, but I wanted to kind of do it. I didn't want him to do it out of obligation. I didn't
Yeah.
want him to go, oh, that's been with me. I gotta do it. It's not what I want to do. So I never wanted that. So I kind of mercifully, as I saw it for him, said, I'm gonna leave. I think it's time for me to go. And it was hard. It was emotional. It was hard. And everyone was looking at me like, "What are you doing? You're crazy." But I did it and wound up driving a stake bed truck for a construction company. I needed to reset my mind. I
Hmm.
needed to do some hard labor. I needed to challenge myself in a way.
Hmm.
I'm not a skilled big kind of truck driver. I'm not, I could drive sports cars and pickup trucks, but these are trucks that would have, cement and bricks and stuff,
Yeah,
and
heavy
you're navigating,
machinery.
yeah, and you're navigating this production. This LDL was the name of the construction company. They were doing stuff, Ellen DeGeneres' house. They were doing stuff in Beverly Hills, really incredible stuff, high end,
Yeah.
top of the line construction. And I was fortunate enough, a friend helped run the company, and he brought me in as a driver. And I just figured this would be a good salve for my soul to just hit the reset button, see how, instead of eating sushi for lunch, which we're really lucky to be doing that stuff, right? It is, a little first world problems, but
Yeah.
really kind of get in there and work and understand, understand the world that I haven't been participating in that way for a long time. So I did that. And it was weird because I'd be driving my truck and my phone on Bluetooth, the speakers, and like I produced a show with Sharon Stone, and she would call, and one day
While you were
Kevin called.
driving?
Yes, it was bizarre. So I was like, like it was really weird, and in a way that I'm like, I don't, it's, how can, I was almost embarrassed, They're like, oh God, I hope Sharon doesn't know I'm driving a truck, because I produced a show, a TV show, 10 episodes, it didn't work, but now you're driving a truck. I just figured it would be a mark against me, but
No.
I was doing it for me,
Yeah, yeah.
She didn't care. Sharon didn't care at all. She was like, "Good for you. You having fun?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having actually kind of a good time." Um, and Kevin called and was like, Where are you? I called Beacon and I called Army and you're not there. Where'd you go?" And I'm like, "Oh, I, you know, uh, I needed to kind of hit the reset button. Everything's great with Beacon and Army and everything. There was nothing, no
Oh, yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah.
fallout.
It's just
I
for
just
the.
was looking to make a change. And he's like, "Well, what are you doing? Where are you at?" And I said, "Honestly, Kev, I'm in a truck and I'm hauling like a ton of cement to this property." And he's like, "I love that. I love working with the earth and moving earth with heavy machinery." And he just went on this, he went on this thing about how he loved it. He loved that I was doing that. And I was like, I'm not doing it for any reaction, but he's like, "No, that's what's great about it. That's it. I love that. You're doing it because you felt you needed it. And sometimes we need that." And I'm like, "Okay, all right. Yeah, let's go, coach. Put me in."
Yeah.
And then he called me. My wife had just given birth to my son. Oh, no, to my daughter, Daisy.
Oh, there's.
Sorry, my daughter, Daisy. She'd just given birth to Daisy. I'm driving this truck and I get a call one morning before I head out to the job. And it's Kevin Costner. We were living with my in-laws at the time because we were transitioning between places. So I take the phone call and it's like, "Glenn, it's Kev." He always has a certain way. "Okay, Glenn, it's Kev. You got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah. What's up?" He's like, "Look, man, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to do a TV show, and I could really use someone with, with whatever you have to bring to the table. I could, that would be helpful. I can't give you credit. I can't, I know, you produce stuff or whatever he was aware of, but he's like, I can only give you a credit that's, beneath you." And I said, "Well, I don't really care about credits, Kevin. Like, what am I going to be your like assistant? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, I don't give a shit about that. Honestly, not to be a pig, but I care about the money because
Yeah.
I've been in a truck for a couple of months and, I need to make up for lost time financially. And he's like, oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. I said, well, I'm in. What is this show? He says, oh, it's something called Yellowstone. And I'm like, oh, I thought it was about the park. I said, well, who's doing it? And he says, Taylor Sheridan. And I'm like, what? Taylor Sheridan. And he says, yes. And I'm like, so I was vibrating with that. Taylor Sheridan's an unbelievable talent. And boy, I admired him. He was doing exactly, I still admire him, but he was doing exactly what I hoped I could do. And I think he was at a certain age. No one his age had ever transitioned the way he did from being an actor to being like the greatest living writer for television. And yeah, he just completely reinvented himself in a way that I was like, I'll do anything. I'll make that guy's freaking sandwiches. Like if
Yeah.
and I'm going to be working for you on this. Yes. So I went and that show changed my life because I was exposed to Montana, Darby, Montana, and Missoula, and Park City, and Thousand Peaks, Utah, and all these places that a New Jersey, Brooklyn guy has no business being in. And I remember buying my first pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And it's like, what the heck are you doing out here? That kind of thing.
Which is it's funny you say that because when I met you the first time, you were like all about the boots and you were all about the
Love
cowboy.
my cowboy
I
boots,
was
baby.
like, okay, so I
I
guess
don't wear them anymore. I don't wear them anymore.
okay, but no, it's
There's a
funny
reason
you
why
say.
you wear them. Just so there's a reason why you wear them. I'm a big Chuck Taylor guy, Chuck All Stars. I love
Okay,
those. The my top ones, that's normally what I wear. I've got a million pairs of them. But I would try wearing them out on that terrain, and it's rocky and it's rough terrain. And my feet, like it felt like it was just going right through the soles. And those cowboy boots are, as you know, that bottom is there ain't nothing getting through there, man. And so they're necessary for
yeah,
for that. And Ariat Ramblers are my boots, and they're the greatest in the world. They're so comfortable. And so I wore them all the time. And so I was exposed to this world because of the thoughtfulness and generosity of Kevin.
yeah,
Again, someone coming in and calling me out of the blue and saying, come on.
yeah.
So,
But I think
you know, I'm genius.
you had sown good seeds in the
Sure.
past. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called you back,
Yeah.
I guess.
They
Uh,
could have called a million people. I'm not a unicorn. They could
oh,
have called a million people. It's my good fortune that they thought to call me. And I'll stick with that because
okay.
there's 100, 1,000, maybe a million people who could do what I did. But for the grace of these men and women, I got the call. So that's awesome. And there's Yellowstone was an incredible experience. That was really hard, but it was wonderful. And that crew is amazing, amazing. These people are amazing. And the
What?
actors, for the most part, really great. Um, and that's all I could say about that. Things get complicated in life.
Yeah.
And I know this. I know that I'm really, really grateful to have spent that time, and I owe a lot of people a lot. I owe them thanks at the very least. But
What?
during that, Kevin
Yeah,
got,
yeah. You was working and gearing up to do Horizon, right? During Yellowstone, like.
and I met Gilly. I met Mark through my
So when did you guys actually meet? What's the timeline?
right when I right before I started working on Yellowstone.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
which is amazing because I got a call years before from Harrison's people when I was at Beacon, and they said, "Hey, he's doing Indiana Jones, the Crystal Skull.
Number
Um,
four. Okay.
yeah, and would you be interested in going with him and being his guy?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I had invested so much in Army and Beacon, and they had invested so much in me.
Yeah, you would have
Uh,
felt bad going off.
No, I don't know
Yeah.
that I would have, and I don't know that they would have said don't do it or I think they would have said go with God, good for you, right on, all right. I think they would have been great about it, but I had just met who would later turn out to be my wife, Leanne. And I had just spent like 10 grand on furniture for my first ever my apartment and mine only. I didn't have any roommates, nothing. So I'd sunk all my money into this. I just signed a year lease and I
Wow.
was going to leave for a year. And I figured, well, there goes that girl. There goes that apartment and that, like there goes everything I just put together. So it felt like a little unstable and it was a really hard decision. And I didn't go with Harrison. And I would have met Gilly.
Yeah, because he was working on Indy 4, right?
Yeah. Yeah, with
Wow.
Michael Kahn, I think, and Steven, and he's very close with that family. So
Yeah.
I laughed about it, oh my gosh, we could have met years earlier. And I wonder what that would have meant for us being around, Kathleen and Frank and Steven and
Yeah.
George and like, oh man, but I don't sit here and regret anything because I'm luckier than anyone. So that's how I met Gilly on Yellowstone. We started talking, and I'm like, who's this like dashing dude with this cool accent, this Kiwi guy who
Mm.
just seems really cool. And he and I have the same sensibility, I think, when it comes to material, and we have the same like it's never about Gilly. With Gilly, it's never about Gilly, and with me, it's never about me. It's always about the project first. That's what we care about. He is exactly that. So we were kind of like kindred spirits, I felt. I can't speak for him, but I felt that. And I was like, ah man, I want to work with this guy. And we just started, curating material and Horizon is there. We're talking about that. And I'm on Yellowstone with Kevin. Well, Horizon, there's percolation going on there. Um, and then Kevin's able to will it into existence somehow. And he does, and he says, "Well, I want, you two should be here with me on this, and so we went. And yeah, Kevin is, I told you, I mentioned Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, you did.
Um, so let me tell you that story. When we're shooting Yellowstone, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood comes out, and I'm always with Kevin. So it's like a Saturday. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to the movies tonight. I'm just going to chill out. And Kevin's like, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to go to the movies. And he's like, well, I'll come. What are you going to see? I said, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's like, I want to see that. I'm going to come with you. And being honest, I was like, oh, man. Not because I want to hang out with Kevin, but I thought I could have a moment to
For
just sit in
you.
the and if I'm wearing a smelly sweatshirt or I haven't combed my hair, whatever, man, nobody
Yeah.
knows me. I could just, for 2 hours. And now Kevin's going with me, and I don't want to look like a bum or whatever. So I'm like, clean yourself up, and I want to be presentable and respectful around the guy. And we sat and watched that movie, and he sat right here. I was on the aisle seat. He sat right next to me. We watched that movie, and I wondered because I was dreading. Margot Robbie's so lovely in that movie. I was dreading her murder, and I had read in the reviews that the end is bloody. And full woman. Like it happened in real life. I don't want to watch Tarantino's recreation of this. So I was dreading it the entire time. And I was wondering what Kevin thought, as we're going through this movie. And then it ends the way it does, which was like, oh my God, this is a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Once upon a time in Hollywood, this is a fairy tale. This is what he wished could have happened, not dissimilar from Inglorious Bastards,
Yeah.
and I loved it. But I wasn't sure about Kevin. I wasn't sure if he liked it or not. So we're walking out of the theater. We're in the parking lot, walking to the car. And I was like, so what'd you think? And he said something that's very important. He said, his answer to what did you think was Quentin Tarantino has a very, very strong and specific point of view. I was like it? Like what? And I'm like, so you liked it? And he's like, yeah, no, I liked it a lot. He's got a very, very strong, specific point of view. And I didn't understand what he meant. Like I understand what a point of view is, but I didn't understand what he was saying. And only later on, in the last tumultuous season of Yellowstone. No, actually, it was before that. I think it was the first half. I don't know. It was maybe it was the end of season 4, whatever. He was there. He was cooking on Horizon. He was going, and I have video. It's in the Beyond the Horizon documentary that Gillies co-directed and produced, that'll hopefully people will see one day. But I shot it on my iPhone. Kevin in his suit is John Dutton, and black cowboy hat and
Yeah.
sunglasses, and he's on the floor of his bus, and he's talking to the production designer who's behind me, and Kevin's rolling around on the floor, crawling on the floor, and he's saying, "So they're in a tunnel. The Native Americans attack up top, and they go into this tunnel, this trapdoor into this tunnel, and they're calling that the daughter and the mother are crawling into the tunnel, and it comes to a dead end. There's no way out, and the dirt is coming down around them, and the woman has a rifle, and she takes it and she starts whacking it against the post,
Yeah.
and the daughter's like, "Stop! It's going to come down on us," and she does it, and it breaks, and she then takes the barrel and she rips a cloth from her dress and she puts it over the barrel and she takes the butt of the gun and she begins hammering it up through the dirt. And he's doing all this on the ground. And he's like, and it breaks through and the cloth tears and a little beam of light comes through and she starts breathing. And then she calls her daughter, "Come and breathe." And that's exactly what's in the movie.
Yeah.
Exactly beat for beat what's in the movie. And this is easily a year before, I think. So his specificity in what he was going to do, what he wanted to do, each and every moment, he knew everything he was going to. There was not anything left to chance. He had it in here, and it was impressive. And that's when I understood what he meant. He has a very specific point of view. Like Tarantino knew exactly what he was going to do every moment of that movie. And
Yeah.
so often on sets with directors, TV especially, where it's point the camera and shoot, actors act. But the point of view of storytelling, not just writing it. Writing it is incredible. It's very difficult. To be a good writer is, God bless you. We have nothing without good story and good writing. But that next thing, to be the writer and the director who has this point of view that is, very specific, very, or he's articulate about it. Um, the first movie didn't do great at the box office, and that's a shame. That to me, that's a tragedy. I think history will look back on what he did there
Yeah.
with that movie when the second one comes out, and it'll be remembered very differently. I think there will be a correction
Yeah.
because what he did, we may never see again. We may never, we haven't seen anything like that
Ever. Yeah.
in a very, very, very long time. And I know people can say, no, there's been television shows that did this. No, man, we started production and it was 116 degrees on our first day on movie one. And it was 16 degrees in the second. And it's not flat prairie space. We are in these mountains, in these places that it's not, yeah, I know the elements are difficult no matter where you are. But when you're up in these mountains and you're in Kanab and Moab and Price and St. George, and you're navigating territory that I don't know how the camera people got the cameras where they needed to be. They just I don't know,
I
man.
mean, I applaud them.
Yeah.
Applaud these people, the crew, everyone there doing the tough day-to-day job. Uh,
Yeah. And look, there's no one, the thing that struck me about Kevin, I learned something about him that I hadn't. Like I'd seen flashes of it on Yellowstone. Whenever if anyone's ever in distress on a set, Kevin's really the first to go, "Oh, what's wrong?" and want to be part of the solution. That is the truth. He look. All of these people are a lot of different things, from Schwarzenegger to Clooney to Costner to whoever. They're all a lot of different things. They're human beings. And
yeah.
your interactions with them on a certain day can be, "Oh, that person's a jerk. They were rude." And it's like, well, maybe they were having a rough day. Maybe their mom died.
Yeah.
Maybe something happened that wasn't good that colored their world that particular moment. So there are a lot of there are a lot of things. Um, I know this unequivocally about Kevin Costner. This is undeniable. He cares about his crew and his cast, unlike anyone I've worked with. Because he knows that we are sacrificing time with our family to be there and to help him realize his dream, or his vision, or his story, whatever you want to call it. And he is not shy about saying that to the crew. And he got emotional. I saw sides of him I had not seen before on this film, and they were all generous and thoughtful. And there's a lot of stuff out there. Don't believe everything you read, please, please, I implore you. This is a guy who
No, no,
has
I know what you're talking about, but
yeah, I don't want to get into it.
I don't ever believe whatever I read.
I don't want to get into it all. I just want to
No, no, no,
say
exactly.
that I know firsthand on a stack of Bibles and on my children that I've seen this guy. He's grateful for the people who give of their time, and he tries to protect them.
Absolutely.
He never wants to put anyone in a spot that they could get hurt or something bad could happen to them. Fact. So I'm proud. I'm proud to have worked on those movies and accomplished what we accomplished in the time that we did. It
Yeah,
was a
very,
fraction
yeah, very
of the
short.
wolves. We crammed a lot in, did it very
Yeah,
fast. Um, and he, after the wrap of the movie one, he was really emotional, and I'd never seen him like that. And it was out of gratitude to the crew. And I know it's this documentary series that happens. Hopefully, when it sees the light of day, you'll see that footage. You'll see a man who's gone through a lot that no one in the outside world knows. Personally, you've read about it in the tabloids. Not recent, but a few years ago,
yeah,
and health wise and all of that, he plays it close to the vest. He's not a bleeding heart, poor me. He's private, and he dealt with things that I don't know. I don't know a lot of people would have done what he did. And I admire it
yeah.
greatly.
What is outcomes the wolves? Outcome the wolves, sorry, without spoiling it, without giving too much away.
Um, it's a love letter. It's a love letter that I'm not the author of. I'm I met Jamie and Jason Neese, twins, big giant twins, wonderful guys.
Great
Again,
guys.
lovely guys, great guy. You know them.
Yep.
They're terrific, and they're from North Carolina, and they're wickedly talented, multi-talented. Along with a fella by the name of Danny Paykoff. They love punk music from like the 90s, the East Bay scene,
Okay.
Northern California. Um, the band Rancid and their album And Out Come the Wolves was very influential for them, to them. And they decided they wanted to make a 90s movie, a 90s style movie. Get rid of the politically correct stuff, get rid of all of that, and just make
Nice.
a movie like it was 1994, 1995. That's it, no apologies. And make it an unabashed love letter to punk and to the DIY, which is do it yourself spirit of punk and that era, that time. So they wrote this movie, which has a little bit in common spiritually with Train Spotting, a little bit in common like that. It's terrifically fun. And that was the aim from the very beginning. Like they didn't set out to go, we're going to change the world. No, they talked about, which is why I'm on it. They talked about they want people to gather in the dark
Yeah.
together and dream the same dream, watch the same thing, laugh at the same points, catch their breath at the same point, smile at the same time, lose yourself for an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. We're not trying to change the world. We're not trying to do anything like that. We're just trying to entertain you and good, bad, or indifferent. I think it's a lot of fun, and we've screened it for people. It's independently financed, so
Hmm.
money is where the mouth is. Um, this is a labor of love, and I hope it's received in the spirit that it was made.
Yeah. Nice. And I know that it's kind of a family affair for you. Somebody very close to you is in it.
Yeah,
I saw a
yeah,
picture of it.
yeah. Look, and this isn't nepotism because I never would have
No, no, no,
imagined.
no. I wasn't getting at
No, but I
that.
mean, nepotism is a thing. But I got to be clear on it because it surprises me. My son Jack, my family never visits me on location, and that's mostly me saying that because a lot of the locations we're at are difficult. They're
Yeah.
they're not friendly,
Maybe
in a sense of the conditions.
also
It's hard.
remote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were there in Horizon. I mean, it they're long. It's hurry up and wait. You
Yeah.
know, it. It's a lot of sitting around. That's why Gilly and I put our chairs out. We always have props put our chairs out and we never sit in them because the crew is always up walking. So our philosophy was we're not sitting down. We're not sitting down and ordering mint teas around the monitor. That's not what we're ever going to do. Um, but the idea that family could come out, I just didn't want to bore my family. And I don't think what I do is that important or that impressive. So I figured they'd be bored. My wife doesn't care. She's into fashion. So she's supportive, but what does she care? So, but this we went to Portland. I'd never been to Portland before, and I didn't like Portland at all when I first got there. I was kind of like, "What is this place?" And I fell in love with it. Portland is an amazing place. It's an eclectic, incredible place where art is all around you and creative is all around you, everywhere you turn.
Wow.
And I thought you're gonna like this. I thought when it rains a lot there,
And
and
it
in
was
the evening,
freezing.
no, well, it was cold, but not cold like it was on Horizon.
Uh,
Horizon was cold. Um, but this was like, November-ish, October,
mhm.
November of this past year. And I would be walking around the city and it'd be misting, raining a little bit. And I thought, this place with the old mills that are shut down that are all graffitied, and the graffiti isn't ugly. It's kind of beautiful. There's a beauty to it. Um, I thought this kind of reminds me of Gotham City, a burnt out Gotham City. My son's a huge Batman fan, like obsessively so.
I don't know.
Uh, really educated himself in the history and everything. So I thought Jack should see this. And I called my wife and said, "Hey, you think you may want to come to Portland?" And she was like, "Yeah, that would be fun. The Nice boys, she knows them and their wives. She knows Danny, like, yeah, let's." And she wanted to be supportive of Danny and them on their maiden voyage. So she came up and we were shooting inside of a club that we had built called the Ivy, and it's a punk club. Graffiti all over the walls. It's quite beautiful. Really impressive what Brian
Wow.
Hurley, our fashion designer, did. He and his team, amazing. And we had, bands like Scowl there and Help. And we had some great new kind of hard rock, punk rock bands that were really generous with their time and wanted to participate in
Yeah.
this love letter. It was amazing. And so we had some scenes, mosh pits, like real stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah.
People,
It's like the real deal.
a real deal. Like
Yeah.
no joke. It was the real people there were authentic, man. And we invited them in, the entire punk scene in Portland, which is substantial. We invited as many who wanted to come in as we could handle. And we sure could have used more, but we worked around it. And we had quite a few people there, 90, 100 people, whatever. And Jack was like, no, Danny. Danny was like, "Hey, Jack, you want to be in the movie?" And I kind of looked, I figured Jack's gonna go, no, because he's like me. He's not looking at spectacle.
Yeah.
So I figured he would go, "No, no." And he was like, "Sure." And Danny said, "You're gonna have to get a mohawk." And Jack was like, and then I thought this is done. And Jack was like, "Okay." I'm like, "Wait, what? What? Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, I would do that."
No, it
He's like,
was
I,
all in
I,
now. It
I'd
was,
like to see what it's about,
yeah,
like what the experience of being background and extra is like. I'm like, "Okay, if you want to do it, dude, right on. I'm happy for you. That's great." So I
absolutely.
got pictures and video of him in the
Yeah, it's,
chair. And
oh, wow. While it was
they
happening.
big
Okay.
mohawk on him. And the Spencemoore the second, and everyone, Orlando Norman, all of them, Sam Reckner, um, they were all so, every one of our actors and actresses, they're just actors. I shouldn't say delineate actors and actresses. All of our actors
Actors.
were amazing in that they welcomed him, they talked to him, and Jack is now taking drama classes,
No way.
much to my much to my chagrin. I told him, "Please be a plumber, be a policeman, go into the service, be
Anything
in the military,
but.
go do something that you can't be replaced by AI."
Oh,
Like, kid,
yeah.
it's a
It's
tough life. I don't know what the future is, but he's got the creative juice, and I'm not going to stomp on that. I've let him know the realities of this life, not in a negative way, but he's made his choice as of now. He just graduated. He's going to go into high school.
high school.
Next, drama and creative writing is what he's really interested in. Um, so
Wow.
yeah, so I have Danny to thank for that, and the Nice boys for allowing that. It was very generous and kind of them, and it maybe has changed the trajectory of my son's life.
That's very, very nice. Well, that was my very last question. Uh,
Great. I've been
I've,
talking too
I've,
much. You're
I've,
exhausted with
uh,
me.
I've taken up so much of your time. I'm sorry.
Listen, Pietro, I love you. You're wonderful. The world needs more of you. Keep doing what you're doing and keep talking to people. Cut this down because there's so much of my rambling is useless. But
No,
you
no,
know,
no. I'll,
this is keep doing this. Gilly and I aspired to do a behind the scenes thing that helped answer some questions for people who may aspire to be filmmakers, who may aspire to get into this business. And I think it's really key to hear from people. I'm the lowest on the rung, but I know you talked to Lisa Lavas. I know
yeah,
you've spoken with Derek Hill. I know you've spoken with legendary talents in this industry that have wisdom and experience to impart upon someone who may watch this, and maybe they're informed to do a certain thing, or do a certain thing a certain way. So I think it's important what you're doing, and I
thank you.
hope you continue to do it. We're
I will.
lucky to have. I appreciate you wanting to even talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to talk to you for quite a while now, but I was always like, maybe, maybe you wouldn't be interested. I know you're very busy and
I
you're.
normally wouldn't. I actually look. I'm comfortable with you.
Oh,
I've talked more than I should have because I'm comfortable with you, and you are a good listener. I know you absorb stuff. And I hope some of the things that I said were not just, a lot of words. I hope there's some value in it, but
there
it's easy.
is.
You're easy to talk to.
Thank
Um,
you.
so I think you should
Kind.
really, I encourage you to continue this.
I
And
will.
if you ever want to talk to, if I can help you get to them, all you
Oh,
got to do is reach out. It's not a burden, and anything you need. So many people have helped me. I have a lot to repay. So if you ever need anything, you just ask.
well,
It's
thank
done.
you so much. I don't know what to say to that.
You're a good man, and it was good to see your face. And please tell your mother I said hello.
I will. I will. And hopefully I will get to hang out with you again and Gilly
We've
soon.
got some things cooking, my friend. We've got
I
some
know.
things.
I know that you guys do, and hopefully I
We're
will.
trying hard. It's difficult, but we're trying very hard. And once we get traction, there's so many things that eventually you throw enough against the wall, one's going to stick.
Something's
That's
gonna
what
stick.
we're doing. And when we do it, you'll get the call, buddy. I promise.
Thank you. I appreciate that more than I can say. Sorry. Please give my love to all your family, and thank you again for the time. It's invaluable to me, and your story does hold a tremendous value for me and for anybody that will listen and watch. Because anyone that has a story to tell, that has experience to share, I think there's always value in that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's very, very kind of you. And
It's
thanks for
true.
talking and probing, questions. They're good questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stay well. God bless. Let's talk soon, buddy.
Okay, brother. Bye.
All
Thank you
right.
very much. Bye bye.
See you, bud.
Bye.